Good morning, guys. Tony Pellegrini here. We've got Renee and her presentation on TFIT. We are so excited to have her here with us today. We've got Marshall Chamberlain as well from Internal Audits and Jenny Lee Thayer from Language and Philosophy. And hopefully a couple more will show up. But we will get started, and we're just so appreciative of you. Thank you so much, Renee, for coming in and teaching us. So I will stop talking. It's all yours, Miss.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, you guys, for coming. I'm not an expert on work-life balance. There is no experts. There is no silver bullet, as we all know. But I was asked recently to speak on the subject, so apparently somebody thinks I have something to offer. Certainly, as the wellness coordinator, I'm constantly reading the literature and everything, but it's probably literature that you guys are reading as well. So I thought about that, and I said, I don't want to just come and say what they probably already read or considered or the list they've already checked off. So I'm going to tell you my story. So a lot of it is about I, and this is just what I do to achieve work-life balance. So definitely let's make this a conversation. Ask me questions by what I mean, and then share your nuggets of wisdom too, so that I can continue to improve in this area. So I'm starting out by sharing with you one of my pet peeves, and that is semantics. And so I sarcastically refer to it as semantic shemantics because it gets to be so annoying. So like now you probably have heard that inclusion is the new word for diversity. I have a story to tell, which I might get to later, but you know, we're told now that we have to say Native American instead of Indian. But I have an interesting story to go with that. Orange is the new black, 50 is the new 20. I say that now because I'm about to turn 50 in a few months. In the wellness industry, VOI is the new ROI. So ROI you deal with all the time, Marshall. What we're starting to do with wellness, because so much of the connection between cost savings and so forth is soft, is the VOI is value on investment. And so that's proving to be a good measurement for things like wellness and probably even public relations. I totally thought I'd turn that off, sorry.
That's okay. We'll live.
Wellness.
Talking about balancing life and work.
If I could know how to run my phone, that would.
Is it a child or President Wyatt?
Exactly. Wellness is even being, the term is being replaced by well-being. And we're looking at what the difference is in those two terms. So my life is filled with.
Before you go on, can I ask a question?
Yes,
this is for everyone, but just with this first one, with like inclusion is the new diversity. When I use the word inclusion, I think of including or participating together. Whereas diversity, maybe we're honoring diversity and honoring maybe some separateness. Not that we're not working together on common problems, but even male, female, there's a little bit of difference. Can you?
Interesting. The reason why this is such a pet peeve for me is because while we're being told to include everybody and look at diversity and honor everybody's differences, we're also being taught we're strong and we're powerful because of our differences. So the semantic says, I'm supposed to kind of not look at the differences, not look at anybody differently, but in between male and female.
I see a difference.
Yeah, and there are strengths, and
yes.
We find that in the union of marriage, male and female, they complement each other as to our weaknesses and our strengths and so forth. So yeah, it's a really hard concept for me to just readily accept that I have to start calling it inclusion as opposed to diversity, because if I don't say inclusion, I'm excluding some group, Yeah. And so we were in there's this book reading circle on campus, the Whistling Vivaldi, and we were in that the other day, and somebody brought up, well, why do we have all of these different clubs, like, Native American clubs and
Polynesian clubs,
the Polynesian club and the Black Student Union, all that stuff? Isn't us having different separate groups not including?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, actually, to me, it's highlighting the strengths and the differences of that group, and that they might influence another group. So I'm with you on that, and you can see why it's a pet peeve, right?
I can see why.
It's because I'm such a politically incorrect person. So anyhow, this is what happened to me this morning. It just goes deep with me. I was at Starbucks. I have the proof here. And I'm like, hi, can I have a large? The employee interrupts, you mean a venti? And I'm like, can we not do this? I just want a large. Why do I have to learn another language to order coffee? So, but you're Italian, so you probably say
ooh, che buono. Sì, che buono. But no, I'm not going to pet peeve you. I'm going to say, yes, I'll get you a large.
Well, he was very friendly. He opened up with, what can I do for you today? So I was like, okay, I can work with this guy. So the other semantic is, it used to be work and life balance. Well, now I don't know if any of you have experienced this, but now we're seeing work and life integration. I don't know. To me, it's just work and life. It's just life, and we've got to get through it. So in wellness, which is part of TFIT, kind of my foundation from which I'm building from in teaching wellness and sharing wellness with my coworkers, hits three areas: intuitive self-care, happiness, and community. And today, the one that I wanted to talk to you about in terms of work-life balance is happiness. So you might be asking why, I'm going to go to the next one real quick, why we're talking about the idea of happiness at work. Does that really go together, or is that oxymoronic? And we could take the route of just, getting rid of the unhappy people, and then we wouldn't have any reason to have wellness or anything like that. That is one of the, demotivation philosophies, but of course, that's not how we work around here. Happiness and success actually intersect and influence one another. There's a book called The Happiness Advantage by Sean Acker. And right now he is a motivational speaker, but he comes from Harvard, where he was engaged in some classes and studies on happiness. And he's written this book, The Happiness Advantage, which is just an awesome book. And it teaches us that, let's be down with the notion that we've always been taught that to be successful, one must be successful to be happy. He's turning it around and suggesting, no, to be happy, we have to be happy first in order to be successful. So it's just a brand new paradigm of 180 degrees that actually research is backing up.
Before you go on, I was a drama teacher. I was not a math teacher, so be patient with me. Okay, but when two
Marshall
lines,
knows how I am with math.
help me out, Marshall. When two lines intersect, like happiness and success, boy, that can be a very finite point. How can we, Stephen Covey taught us about creating a circle of influence, influencing those within, our family members, those with whom we work with day in, day out. How can we, do you have any ideas maybe how to make, rather than just a very finite point between those two situations, maybe how to broaden that circle a little bit?
Well, I do it with holistically. And I think that's what we're trying to do with TFIT Wellness is approach holistically. So wellness, maybe in previous years, we automatically thought of physical exercise and maybe diet as being wellness. But actually, it's a very holistic approach if you want a well-balanced wellness, if you will. So there's the emotional dimension of wellness, the mental dimension, the social dimension, intellectual, occupational. And so I think to have balance with all of those things that influence moment to moment is where it might broaden that intersection.
Okay.
I consider it that way.
That's great.
So the good news for us and why we're talking about happiness at work is because thankfully we have leaders who believe in happiness and wellness as well. And President Scott Wyatt last year said in one of our employee forums that the wellness and happiness of all of you, the employees of SUU, are integral to our fulfilling our institutional mission, vision, and core values. So he himself understands how wellness plays into the success of individuals as well as the success of our organization. And we know, well, you might not know, but he's big time physical exercise wellness. He goes on 50-mile hikes and stuff like that, and that's just a jaunt for the day. But he is acknowledging here that, yeah, we definitely need to take that holistic approach. So Dr. Rosie Ward was reporting in a Gallup Management Journal that if someone is thriving in their career well-being, thriving at work, they are 50% more likely to be thriving in other areas of well-being. So again, that's why it's important for us to have conversations like this at work, because we're here, it seems like most of the time of our life, 40 hours at minimum. So if we're not happy here, it's going to affect the rest of our life. And then Provost Brad Cook last year, which I was really happy to hear him say, we were having a conversation about the International Day of Happiness. Remind me to tell you guys about that this year. Some exciting news. And he said, we in higher education, we're actually in the business of human well-being because we're educating young people, we're doing research, and we're influencing each other every day when we're at work. So in the Happiness Advantage, some of the principles that it puts forth for consideration are these. Happiness is far more than a good, warm, and fuzzy feeling. It's an indispensable ingredient of true success. So we might hear about it under different labels and not using that word happiness. But I'm happy to report that corporate America is getting more comfortable with using the word happiness and giving it more credit for it than just being warm and fuzzy feeling. Happiness is actually about learning how to cultivate the mindset and behaviors that have been empirically proven to fuel greater success and fulfillment. Some people might even go as far as say that it is their work ethic and their attitude and how they approach things. Some other statistics and authoritative statements beyond just little old me. The Harvard Business Review states that happiness raises nearly every business and educational outcome. It's raised sales by 37%, productivity by 31%, accuracy on task by 90%, as well as a myriad of health and quality life improvements. And Brian Miller of Miller Enterprises here in Utah, when he was on campus last year talking about health and chronic disease prevention, he said that we are just waking up to the facts as to the merits of happiness, how it affects our physical health, mental health, social health, occupational health. So this is a little graph that I made up for myself in my pursuit and study of happiness in the past years. And we have happiness in the middle, and success orbits around happiness. And for me, success in all of these things contributes to my happiness.
And I'm not old enough for grandchildren yet, but I would put in grandchildren.
Well, and as I mentioned earlier, I'll be turning 50 this year, and I have instructed my daughters, do not make me a grandma before I'm 50.
Oh, okay.
So they can have a child in December of 2017. They'll be safe.
Is the line to my children
And
squiggly?
I think that was a Freudian slip. I don't know how that happened. That's so funny. It just must be a Freudian slip.
Hey, it's pretty darn straight. It's pretty darn straight.
My children make me shaky and sketchy. So we all have our own definitions of success, and we all have our own definitions of happiness. And in my exercises, as I said, in my pursuit to both success and happiness, I started out with writing this chart so I could know myself further, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a few minutes. So if you are interested in pursuing happiness and success, whatever your definitions are, I'm not going to lie to you. It's work. It's work. It's hard work, and it's lifelong work that happens every single day. But it's probably the most fulfilling work that you might have. And it's very individual, and again, you take it to the depths and lengths that you want to. But in the Happiness Advantage, it told us that the heart of the challenge is to stop thinking of the world as fixed, when reality and truth is very relative. So it's all about changing your perception and seeing things differently. And I'll just go ahead and throw that story out to you right now, which I was talking about a while ago when Native American is the new Indian. This was years ago. Years ago, I was writing for Nevada Magazine, and they gave me the assignment to go out and cover the Indian Stampede Rodeo that was happening on an Indian reservation in the middle of rural Nevada. And my editor, who was, politically correct and everything up and down, said to me very clearly, Renee, when you write this story and when you are interviewing for this story, you refer to them as Native Americans. I'm like, okay, whatever. So I went to the Indian Stampede and that's what it's called, the Indian Stampede. And I'm doing interviews, and I'm talking to a gentleman who was clearly Native American Indian, and I said, hey, this is what my editor told me. But the thing that's going on in my head is it's called the Indian Stampede. And I said, and this has just been a question I've always had. What do you guys want to be called? And I just said it like that. And he goes, I'm an Indian. I'm proud of being Indian. There's nothing negative to that label as far as I'm concerned. I'm proud of my heritage, so call me an Indian and call it the Indian Stampede. And I just thought that was just beautifully illuminating for the rest of us who are not Indians or not Native American, because it always seems to be us who are trying to make the changes for this group, and who knows if they even want that change. Like, you know, and when we were hearing so much about the Redskins, Washington Redskins, we need to change that name. I don't recall seeing an Indian ever speaking on that. Do any of you remember that? I don't ever remember seeing an Indian or Native American speaking to that. So I don't think it's bothering them, but for some reason it's bothering us. So it's all in perception and what we see, what is reality. Perception is reality. I was educated on that principle being a public relations major. Reality is merely our brain's relative understanding of the world based on where and how we are observing it. So we Caucasians are observing, you know, we think the Indians want to be called something different. Interesting. Happiness is not the belief that we don't need to change. It's the realization that we can. Research over and over is proving that we are biologically, scientifically wired to be happy beings, and that we have the power within our brain to actually lead ourselves to happiness. We'll talk about that a little bit further. So more good news comes from our own David Phillips out of Physical Education and Human Performance. And he taught us last year in the Chronic Disease Prevention series that the more you have to gain, the more you can gain. And he could have been talking about weight, but I think not. He was actually tongue-in-cheek saying, we have so much to gain, we have so much that we can grasp in our brain's activity and power, that the potential is just really limitless. And she added to that work doesn't work without play. Attitude's everything. You know, I hear that all the time. My sister-in-law is one of those happy people that walks around and says, oh, attitude's everything, you know, and sarcastically it was like, whatever. And actually, she and I did a presentation together years ago at a Relief Society thing. And I'm not an LDS member, but it's amazing how many times I'm in the LDS church talking and so forth. It's interesting. So she and I did a presentation about attitude is everything. She had a sweatshirt on that said attitude is everything with a big smiley face, and I had a sweatshirt on that says I like my attitude problem. And so we were doing a presentation on that. But I have definitely evolved on this concept over the past years, and attitude truly is everything. And these are a couple of my favorite quotes that I often refer back to. So William James said, my experience is what I agree to attend to. And I think that he's talking about that cognitive power that we have within to change our brain, if you will. And then John Hyatt and Bonnie Raitt, two of my favorite musicians, in a song say, whether your sunglasses are on, you only see the world you make. So it's really all up to you. So we're not going to read all this, don't worry. Another quote from Happiness Advantages, mindset doesn't just change how we feel about an experience, it actually changes the results of that experience, how we think about it and how we approach it. And these different kinds of quotes that I'm sharing with you are what I use to achieve work-life balance. So I'm a testament to it actually working, at least for me. And quickly, I just wanted to say how this just comes up every day for me, with me not even trying. So I was engaged in a discussion board on the idea of how our thoughts can affect our results. And a friend, a classmate actually, was sharing with me that when she was in college in her undergraduate program, they did an exercise where they kept a journal for 2 days and were told to write down every negative thought that they had, very lightly negative, very deeply negative, and then go back and look at it. And for her, it was an eye-opener, and I think it would be for all of us, because all of us in this room might say, I'm generally an optimistic person and happy and everything, but we probably have more negative thoughts that influence how we correspond with somebody, how we interact with somebody, than we realize. So she said this was a great step in self-awareness, and went on to say self-awareness is the first step in countering those negative thoughts, and that it came down to all about cognitive behavioral therapy, which we will continue to talk about. Negative self-talk, she said, and distorted thinking, she found, were destroying her quality of life. So I encourage you to maybe try this exercise, especially if you're having a bad day. Write down all those negative thoughts, and then at the end of the day, go back and consider how real or how big they really were, and then how they are influencing you.
What I really like about that is that, all too often we'll say, we only got a 1% salary increase, or, my kids only got B's instead of A's at school, or whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. But really what she's saying here is our own thought process controls our attitudes and our beliefs. And yes, we may only get a 1% increase, and yes, our kids only maybe B rather than A students, but it's kind of how you frame it or how you wrap your mind around it.
It truly is. I had a boss once that he was my first boss out of college, so I was just so blessed to have him as that. And we had parties and celebrations if we made 75% of our goal. And so 100% wasn't required from him. And he said, well, we made 75%. We could have made 50. We could have made 35. Let's celebrate 75%. So he was a total reframer. And that was just so motivating for us to say, oh, yeah, we're not losers. Let's do it. We're actually doing pretty well.
And absolutely. I really think, in working with people, that positive approach is a lot more influential and motivational than saying, oh, you only made 75%. Hey, you made 75%. Holy cow, what great advances we're making.
Right, and that's not being a Pollyanna by any means. No. It's actually looking at the reality of the situation. You made 75% as opposed to what could have been. And so it is very much how you frame it, your perception of it, how you choose to move on with it. She suggested a good book. I'm definitely going to look into it. It's called Feeling Good, The New Mood Therapy, if any of you are interested in looking at that. And then it made me think of a book that was very key in my journey, and that is Successful Problem Solving, a workbook to overcome the core beliefs that keep you stuck, which I thought was very interesting because we had this workbook when we were in a group therapy setting, and we were talking about how to de-stress and how to be more positive, how not to let depression control your life. And the name of the book was Successful Problem Solving. And so from the very start, I'm like, well, this is an interesting approach to depression or stress, or that we're looking at it as a problem-solving opportunity. And the way we went about it was looking at our core beliefs. That's a whole other presentation, but definitely a process.
We'll invite you back.
Process that I went through, yes. Oh, all right. So I'm going to share with you some of the secrets to my success, and I emphasize my, because this is part of intuitive self-care. It's very, very personal in you finding out what works for you. But the secret to my success, if anybody asks, is changing how I think. Not changing what I think, not changing what I believe, but changing how I think about it. One of my very favorite quotes, one of my self-guiding quotes, is this from S. Scott Fitzgerald. And that is, the test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposing ideas in mind at the same time, but still be able to function. And this has really come up here with the election and everything, opposing ideas. And obviously I tend to go to one side, but to be able to hear the other side and consider that opposing ideas and what perspective that person's coming from, and assuming that that person has positive intent allows us to function and have conversations like this. Although I must say you guys aren't talking very much. So please jump in. But to be able to talk to each other, knowing that we believe differently, but being able to hear the other person's side, and then just, you know, and I know you're a good person. I know you're a good person. I know you're a good person.
Me too.
Yeah. So knowing that you're a good person, but also knowing that you believe differently than me allows me to open up and consider you.
A couple of things that I do.
Respect.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was going to say. With my kids, whether they're my personal biological ones or the students that I work with, I always focus on courtesy and respect. We're human beings. You prick me, I bleed. I get courtesy and respect from everyone else. And so it's, you know, putting those foundations out there about how I think, you know, I've got to treat everyone courteously and respectfully because they're humans, because they breathe, they walk, they live, they're alive. And that really helps me to frame, you know, how I interact with others, or try to interact with others.
And we're all different, but we're all the same as well. We're all humans having that same struggle. Exactly. Thanks for sharing that. So I have mentioned the term cognitive restructuring. This is a whole field of study, oftentimes under the auspices of positive psychology.
No, there won't be a test on this, right?
No.
Okay.
Definitely. I'm totally against it.
Okay.
Positive psychology is an emerging field, an emerging part of the psychology field. Professor Hatch, one of our newer faculty, teaches positive psychology, and all about training your brain and actually allowing restructuring to go on in your brain. So we have these things in our brain. I definitely am not intellectual on this, but they're called telomeres and dendrites. And they have done tests on people's brains, happy people and not so happy people. And it's shown that you can actually see the dendrites growing when you are applying positive psychology in your life. So we do have the actual physical ability to restructure our brains and to be happier beings if that's what we want to do. Huh. Apparently I've made the words move. So work-life balance, intuitive self-care, how do I do it? These are some of the questions that I take myself through. And this is when I refer to it being work and hard work even, these are some of the things that I meant, taking yourself through these inventories on a regular basis. So Boyd K. Packer told us that you can't change behavior in yourself or in a group of people until you know the why of why. Why do we want to change the behavior? What is the behavior that we want to change? And what is our motivation to why we want to change? So some of the questions that I ask myself, or I might ask a group, is what do I do and why do I do it? His name's? Les. Thank you.
You can't go to SUU without saying Les Jones.
Exactly, Les Jones. And the tagline that comes after Les Jones is, why do we do what we do? That's just how he started out in any of his lectures to students or to coworkers and everything. And it was just so beautiful and just meant so much. Why do we do what we do? And that's the whole study and the whole journey. Not just what I believe in, but why do I believe in these things? I remember when I was in college and I was doing an internship in Washington, D.C., and it was just a turning point in my life, exhilarating experience. I was out with a fellow Nevadan, and we were talking about life and everything, and we happened to be both of us raised Catholic, and but we're at a point in our life where we were thinking of, rethinking it. And he goes, well, why do you believe what you believe, Renee? And, I'm like, well, because that's why.
That's a good reason.
He goes, is it because it's just what we've always been told, it's the way it is? And I said, well, I guess so. I guess that's true. And so that launched me, and I still believed it, but it launched me into an exercise to say, okay, I do believe in this, but why? Beyond, it's what I've always been told. And that's just, that builds self-efficacy, self-confidence, self-esteem, and trust in yourself. So that's a very important step that I go through often. What's my motivation? What's the reason for doing this? You know, why did the Center of Teaching and Learning Excellence want to do something on work-life balance? Because new faculty requested it. And why am I in the wellness position? So, and why do I want to do this program as opposed to this one? And then how do I know I'm succeeding? Again, this is a definite personal definition. I have a list of things that indicate to me whether I'm succeeding or not. Very personal things, but it is your own definition. What impact is this decision and choice having on the quality of life, first for me, and then for the people that I care about? So I wanted to give you guys this. This is just kind of a list